Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm here with Cyril Jerome Quinn on this rainy 7th of April 2022 as we discuss another spectacular, and I mean spectacular episode of simply the best show on television, Snowfall Season 5, Episode 8, Celebration. Of course, this is episode 823 of the Real Deal podcast. I am excited and glad to be here with you. We're going to jump right into it. Um, First, just give you a quick synopsis of the episode. We have, of course, the big wedding with Jerome and Louie finally getting married after all these years. You see the return of also DEA agent Tony Moreno spying in on Franklin at the wedding. We see Teddy Mack and Louie have a meeting. We'll talk a lot about that. We see we see a just again we're gonna deep dive the wedding. That's gonna be our deep dive. This wild wedding scene that was just masterfully shot by by the directors and producers. They did just phenomenal job on this episode. So we'll definitely talk about that along with the best scenes and of course MVP. We see Teddy Mack again spying in on Franklin, breaking into his house as he continues to dig deeper into his financial records and what have you. We see Veronique make a fatal mistake that I think is going to come back and bite Franklin or her in the ass in the next couple episodes. So a lot going on in this episode, and we see a little mini reunion, of course, with Louie and Teddy Mack. We'll talk about that as well. Let's go with the deep dive. So Louie and Jerome get married. It was a bunch of who's list of guests. I mean, this was everybody seemingly was there. That either had any types of connections with Franklin and ties with Franklin and Louie. They let one person too many in there because for whatever reason, Scully was invited to the wedding. Now, and this, Scully in classic Scully fashion spikes the chocolate with LSD. So everybody was high, just almost everybody, with the exception of Veronique, who of course left early because she's pregnant. Didn't and Wanda, out of all the people who wasn't high, Wanda wasn't high because she was allergic to chocolate. You see everybody on this LSD high, and of course it had a major effect on one Franklin Saint. First, let me just address there's no way in the world I would ever, under any circumstances, invite Scully to my wedding. Like it just wouldn't happen. Like you made the peace with Scully. We're good. We don't. They are on good business terms as of right now with Scully. There was no reason for him to be at that wedding, for them to invite him to that wedding. None. Everybody else that was there absolutely, made sense. Whereas Avi, Gustavo, uh, you know, Louis' friends from Arkansas. Shout out to our dude Jannard from Power Book 4 Force, who's getting in a lot of work. As we'll see him back this weekend in their ninth episode. I think it'll be episode 8 or 9. I think it's episode 9 coming up this week for that show. So everybody else made sense. Scully being there did not make sense. So we go inside this wedding. Franklin, of course, was clearly affected the most by the LSD. He starts, having seeing himself for who he really is, and you see these different voices really exposing Franklin for who and what he is as some of the decisions that he's made over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, ever since he got into the drug game. We see White Rob criticize Franklin, come back. Of course, he shot White Rob in the season premiere. or was it yeah, I think it was the season premiere where he shoots White Rob because White Rob had got hooked up, got hooked on drugs and could not be trusted. And again, we didn't blame him for killing White Rob, but then White Rob basically says, "Hey, I would have never gave you up. Um, you also basically had your father killed," and we see Rob, shoot Franklin. Of course, it was Franklin is just high on LSD, so we know it's not real. Then we get into Sissy, who also was high as well, comes into the house, um, sees Franklin laying in the bathroom by a tub. At first, she's comforting him, telling him you'll be fine, and then she goes at him saying, "You basically put money above God, and you put money and white people above God, and basically knocking him for some of the mistakes he's made, and then this is not what your father taught you." And then he yells at her, and she runs away crying. Veronique comes in. Excuse me. Veronique comes in as well, and basically says, you're going to choose. You can't be a businessman and a criminal at the same time. Your family, in order to protect us, we have to betray you in order to protect ourselves, and your family will betray you. Um, so then, and this was the key to me. This was the key out of all the people that Franklin saw. The key part of this scene was Franklin and the Teddy Mack conversation. So we saw this in the trailer, okay, when Franklin says, "I'm gonna kill you before you kill me." And when it came up in this episode, you clearly think that this is not a real scene per se. This is not really actually happening. This is the drugs. But it turns out that Franklin, high on LSD, paged Teddy McDonald, and Teddy and actually tells Teddy, "This is it. I'm going to kill you before you kill me, and this is how it's going. This is how it's going to go down. I know." It eventually, basically said, "I know eventually you're going to kill me, but I'm going to kill you before you kill me." And we see in real time Teddy, with obviously a concerned look on his face, um, hang up the phone, hang up the payphone, go back in the car with Parissa, is now his new boo boo, and tells her, "Hey, Franklin says that he's going to kill me." And she says, "Well, was he serious?" And he said he sounded serious. Um, so that was the key part of that whole ordeal. Out of all those characters that were in Franklin's head, that was the key. That was because now, you completely now again, the relationship between these two is not good anyway. They don't see eye to eye on anything right now. That now puts Teddy Mack on the defensive at a whole nother level. And I don't think that Franklin will. It'll be interesting to see, what transpires moving forward in regards to their relationship in terms of their interaction, because there was a lot that went on. That whole the Teddy Mack, Franklin, Louie. We'll talk more about that, but they are, it's basically going to be World War III between those two. We see a young Franklin come up before he got into the drugs, and seemingly when he was like 18, a young Franklin talking to the older version of himself, basically, and calling out all the shitty things that he's done, all the betrayals, all the lies, everything. I mean, he's basically giving him the business as far as the type of life that he's lived over the past 5 years, with past 5 seasons since the show started. And Franklin basically says, "Hey, I try to help people," and basically his younger self basically just destroys that argument and says, "You've done this, that, you've had this person killed, that person killed, you betrayed this person, that person, and so on and so on." And this is basically, he tells current Franklin, this is going to crumble. Remember earlier in the season, a couple episodes ago, when that the whole shootout with Kane tried to take Franklin and his whole family out, Sissy told Veronique, or told Jerome and Louie, this is going to crumble. So I don't think that is not a coincidence by any stretch of imagination that we hear that again. And listen, this season they have one more season left after this. Of course, so the show has been renewed for a sixth and final season. It's not going to. We know it's not going to end well, Franklin. We just we know it does not. For the you look at Walter White, Tony Sopranos, these protagonists of these shows, it doesn't end well. It just doesn't, especially in the criminal world and in the world that Franklin's in. So I let this whole entire wedding scene was just wild from start to finish. Um, this is a place that they have not gone far a lot. Now we in terms of we saw this kind of in season 3, the season 3 finale, other lives, when ever after Franklin got shot by Melanie, he's kind of like not hallucinating, but he's kind of in the dream state of where it shows what would have happened had he not been introduced to drugs and not going towards that, not going in that direction. He's in college. You know, it's like what could have been. So that's the only episode that they've gone in that direction. Again, risky, but I thought necessary, using LSD as a way to kind of not expose Franklin. We know who Franklin is, but kind of let Franklin actually see himself for himself. Because remember, Franklin is the ultimate. He he doesn't. He's married to the game, but he does not Franklin's not a guy that really holds him that's holding himself accountable for his actions. He's really not. He's kind of in that mode at this point with his character that he's trying to judge that he has justified everything, especially now with a child on the way, that he's justified all of his actions. And then it was interesting for them to use drugs as a means to show him that there's really no justification for the types of decisions and choices that he's made. So I thought this was well shot. It was a lot going on at this wedding from start to finish, from day to evening. Let's get into some of the themes. The themes, I think this episode were betrayal and all in. We're going to see the continuous betrayal from Louie as she goes behind Franklin's back once again. And again, Louie is all in as far as this betrayal, and as far as you have a number of characters that are all in as far as feeling like they're protecting their own interests. Whereas Veronique, whether it's Louie, whether it's even Leon in terms of the direction that he's going. Sissy, Jerome are kind of conflicted. Teddy Mack is, he's all in as far as the direction that he's going in, and not trusting Franklin, and really, having trying to keep Franklin at bay, or trying to control Franklin. So again, betrayal and all in were a couple of themes that I thought fit this particular episode. Let's go into some best scenes. So Louie, Teddy McDonald, Gustavo. So at the beginning of the episode, this is before the wedding, we see Louie meet up with Teddy McDonald and Gustavo, and immediately she tells Gustavo that she wants to buy directly from him. And of course, Franklin does not know about this. Teddy Mack basically says, "Hey, better to go with the devil you know." Louie does not, didn't want to go the route of the dealing with the Colombians. And you see the interesting thing about this is, first of all, you see Gustavo shake his head because he knows Teddy Mack is not to be trusted. That's number one. The number two, this was something that was basically 2 years in the making. Like, you wonder why Louie would do something like this. She's at a point where this is the ultimate fuck you move to Franklin. Like, it's one thing to have Kane shot and killed, to want to have Kane killed. I understand that move from a protection standpoint. Like, this guy tried to wipe you out. So that move, I can understand that move. This move, I don't understand because number one, Teddy Mack can't be trusted. And number two, again, you know the history between, she knows the history between Franklin and Teddy Mack. So this is the ultimate like betrayal. And Louie at this point just doesn't give zero fucks. Like this is when Franklin finds out about this, it like there's no coming back from this. And we've seen her. Shout out to Angela Lewis, who of course plays Louie. We've seen she is throwing all her chips in the middle of the table. She's throwing all her chips in the middle of the table. She's going for it. These are this. I mean, she's made back-to-back episodes. She's made two bold moves, to say the least. This one I think is going to really backfire on her because now. But again, this started getting to the genesis of this move. This started really a couple of years ago when Franklin got shot by Melanie, and when she and Jerome had to fill in for him and deal with Teddy Mack. Because I'm thinking probably Louie probably thought that, you know what, I can do what Franklin is doing. I could do this. Yeah, I respect Franklin. He's my nephew, not by blood, but through Jerome. But you know what? We're doing fine. With him being on the mend, we're still doing fine. And when Franklin doesn't go out his way to make her a partner or make her, basically 1A to his, 1A to his one, it probably it completely probably pissed Louie off. And Louie right now is operating. Louie, these seem like business moves, but these are absolutely, this is an absolute fuck you to Franklin Saint. There's no two ways about it. So Louie and Jerome talk about it. Jerome basically, Louie tells Jerome, what she's done in terms of meeting with Teddy Mack. Jerome kind of is in it, is kind of with her, but also part of Jerome is like, don't want any part of a war against Franklin. I'm not going against family from that standpoint. I know what you're trying to do. I have faith in what this road that you're going down. I know why we have to do what you're trying to do, but Jerome is not all in. And Jerome's going to have some tough decisions to make. Franklin's his nephew. Sissy is his sister. Louie is his wife. So Jerome's in a tough spot. He's in an impossible spot. I mean, he just got married. But I think deep down, you watch the scene, Jerome, then he doesn't say this, but he is not all in with this move. He's not. Veronique meets up with Kane. So Veronique goes to Kane's spot, this little bar, where Kane and his peoples are at, to basically ask Kane, is she safe? Is her baby safe? This is one of the dumbest moves that any character has made this season. It is literally like she now, first of all, she, going back to a couple of episodes ago, she didn't trust Kane. Like when Franklin was discussing the meeting and the discussion that they had with Kane, especially Leon had with Kane, and basically the truce, Veronique wasn't all in on that and didn't completely trust Kane. So, which is fine. It's one thing to tell Franklin, like, hey, don't trust her. Don't trust this. I wouldn't completely trust this dude. Another thing to put yourself out there. Not only before this scene, Kane had no idea who Veronique was. Now you tell a potential enemy that, hey, I'm his fiance, I'm his ex-girlfriend, I'm carrying his baby, and on top of it, she says, hey, do I need to go back east with my mother? Like how? I mean, this was such a dumb. It was such a dumb move. Such a dumb. Like, a move like this tells me that I don't think Veronique is going to make it through this season. Like I don't. I think this kind of stupidity is going to foreshadow her death. I don't think she's making it through the season. Like I think this is going to come back and bite. It's really going to come back to haunt her with this move. This was such a dumb move. Kane basically says, "Hey, we basically, you didn't hear, basically, I'm basically going to keep my word, and we made a deal, and me and Franklin and Leon all made a deal, and what have you. But he has a ace up his he has an ace up his sleeve with this. Like he has, like this is an advantage for Kane to have all this information about Franklin's girlfriend, and just the fact that he knows who she is now. So just dumb move by Veronique. Towards the latter part, towards the end of the wedding, and I wanted to say this. I wanted to say this from the deep dive of the wedding. Louie and Franklin. So it's at the end of the night. People are just completely just drugged out. You even had one couple even having sex right in the middle of the whole wedding, and on the grass you see John and Big Dion get into this friendly fight that Wanda has to break up. So the night is winding down. You see even Leon has to put Sissy in the car because she's out of it. But the night is basically winding down. Jerome is dancing with Louie to I believe Sam Cooke. Yeah, I believe Sam Cooke dancing. It was a Sam. You Send Me. Yeah, you danced to Sam Cooke. You Send Me. Of course, the late legendary one of the greatest R&B singers of all time, the Sam Cooke. So they're dancing, and Franklin cuts and says, respectfully cuts in, and the high has basically worn off Franklin. Like he's almost he's almost regular at this point. Um, and he tells Louie, "I apologize. I should have made you a partner." And she basically says, "Yep, you should have." And I hope it's not too late. And in classic Godfather 2 type scene, she says, "It is too late," and kisses him right on the lips. Like I said, this was clearly an ode to the Godfather kind of kiss of death when Michael and Fredo. This is that in reverse because Louis is the one that's betrayed Franklin, and he doesn't even know it. But she initiates the kiss, and once he says it's over, no, once she says that it is too late, Franklin. I mean, again, this Damson Idris was tremendous in this episode. You can see the concern on his face. And as this is happening, we see Buckley and another officer getting ready to come in on the attack of Kane. And of course, that is how the episode ends. Um, MVP is Franklin Saint. Like Damson Idris, this might have been one of his 5 best performances of the entire series. Especially when he's going in and out of the emotions of the being affected by the LSD. When he played himself, a younger version of himself. He was just phenomenal in this episode. He really showed you. I mean, we knew this guy already had the type of range he has, but he really showed off his range in this particular episode. He showed him, especially the vulnerable side of him, the the kind of side that that we rarely that we don't get to see a lot from Franklin Saint um often. So he's the MVP of this episode. A couple other things to keep in mind. We saw that I mentioned Tony Moreno is back. Remember, DEA agent Tony Moreno was from season 2. He of course popped up last season and gave the reporter the reporter, the information about Franklin and how Franklin got out of jail in season 2. So he was listening in a van taking surveillance. So we now know the DEA is on to Franklin, and he more than likely is working with Ruben, who because Sissy found his way as an undercover in the wedding as a waiter before Sissy kind of when she came around at the house after being yelled at by Franklin, kind of said, you got to go and you're hurting my family. And of course, nobody was barely paid attention to it. Avi said he's a waiter, so nobody from that standpoint is on to Ruben. So she didn't expose him or what have you. Nobody even barely noticed outside of Avi, and Avi didn't have suspicions because at that point again everybody was high off LSD. Um, we mentioned earlier about Teddy Mack breaks into Franklin's house. and takes pictures of financial records. So again, his he is all in on Franklin on just finding every piece of information out about Franklin. So it's what we'll see what he does with those information on those financial records. Financial records. Again, I don't care about the relationship that Teddy has with Parissa. That storyline I just could care less about. To be perfectly honest with you, again, we've seen this over the course of the series, over the course of this season, that the walls continuously are caving in on Franklin Saint, and you know this Louie, Teddy Mack, Franklin Saint dynamic will be very, very interesting because again, Franklin Jerome said this during the scene with Louie that Franklin is going to be mad as hell when he finds out about this. He really is, like, because this is the ultimate betrayal. I mean, this is actually worse than trying to kill Kane. This is much worse. Like you can justify the trying to kill Kane aspect because that's just you're trying to protect yourself from a guy who you don't. There's no reason for Louie to trust Kane. Like I get that. Who knows? In her mind, she's not going to allow him to take another shot at her and Jerome and what have you. But going to Teddy Mack behind Franklin's back is like that is point no return, and there will be no coming back from that. I don't think if I'm making predictions for the rest of the season, there are 2 episodes left. I can't see how Louie survives the season. I don't. I really don't see how she survives the season. Like she's making too many bold moves, and right now I think she thinks Franklin is weak. I really do. And Franklin, I posted something right after the episode, a couple of days, maybe a day or two after the episode last week, where Franklin Saint was acting kind of morphing into Stringer Bell, which is not a good thing for him because that means he's further away from the street as far as being street smart and further away from the game and being as sharp as you need to be in that business. And I think Louie sees that. And I think Louie right now smells blood. Like she sees Franklin as being vulnerable. I don't know if he's quite as vulnerable as she thinks he is, and that's to me it's going to bite her in the ass in the next couple episodes. When I think season finale that Louie probably is going to get killed. To be honest with you, I'm guessing that's a prediction. So we'll see what happens. Again, this is probably one of my 5 to 10 favorite episodes of the entire series. It really was that good. A lot going on in it, and we will see what transpires in episode 9 next week. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast. I will see you next time. So long.